What's up, folks? Welcome back to TacticalTortoise. My name is Trevi, and this video is brought to you by Lighter Creative. We've talked a lot about different varieties of miniature gaming terrain on this channel, but one thing we haven't really discussed is a terrain system that is built, first of all, specifically for ease of use for Warhammer 40k, but also for players of the WTC format. We talk a lot about using a lot of terrain systems with US Open or the Pariah Nexus format at the time of recording, but I'm excited to bring you today a version of these terrain systems that is very explicitly designed with WTC in mind, and that is the Lighter Creative Wargaming Terrain System. Now, first of all, I want to talk about their bespoke battle mat. This is very different from the neoprene style of battle mat that you would get from almost anywhere else. First of all, I think it's kind of like a vinyl material. It's not quite as static as vinyl, I guess. You can fold it, you can do whatever. It is like a cloth-backed material, so it is very flexible and nice, but it is a little bit more slippery than neoprene. It is textured, though, which is very nice. Gets the point of a textured mat across a little bit better, I think, than neoprene does. The big benefit, though, is that this mat is incredibly easy to transport. So this whole thing will fold up and compress down to a super small size. Actually, when I originally got the mat, I thought that they had either lost it in shipping or forgotten to send it, because I didn't realize that it came packaged with the terrain set. This is the box that it comes in. It's this big when it's all folded together. That's it. That's how big it is. It's so small. Obviously, that's a huge benefit if you are on the move. Now, in addition, the Lighter Creative mats also have the Pariah Nexus 10th edition missions printed on them. So, as you can see, we have deployment zones laid out, as well as the position of objective markers in different spots based on the mission combination that you've rolled up. It also has a grid set, 1 inch by 1 inch squares. So whenever you roll up to a game, you'll just find the objective spots that are requested in your particular mission. You'll count to make sure that you have the ones at the right distance from the table edges and the other objective markers, and then you just place your objective marker right there. On top of that, you don't have to measure anything. Much easier setup than a standard system where you wouldn't have all of this, obviously, open information. One thing that it does, you'll find, is that it very easily closes off a lot of questions about movement. Obviously, Warhammer is a little bit of a nebulous game when it comes to its true measurements style. You do have to measure the raw distances between different miniatures. However, when those distances are shown on the table in almost literally black and white, you can very easily determine that you've moved the correct distance, right? I know that my model moves 6 squares, so I know that I need to be somewhere within that 6th movement in order to ensure that I'm not moving additional distance. I love these for competitive play. Obviously, it doesn't look quite as good when you are building tables out narratively, but if you are trying to keep you and your opponent honest in terms of measurements, these grid squares make things very nice. They also, as we can see, make it really easy to measure out deployments and stuff like that. So pretty neat, to be honest. I also think that there's probably a little bit of an additional benefit to the material that they've used. Because it's more static and less stretchy than neoprene, it seems like it doesn't have the same level of drift that neoprene tends to do. Because neoprene can stretch during the cutting process, you oftentimes get mats that are slightly too big or too small, and that creates a problem when you're trying to print stuff like this on them, because these measurements can be slightly off by a minuscule amount. And it seems like this material being a little bit more static and less stretchy allows it to be printed more precisely than a traditional neoprene. So definitely some huge benefits to the material that we're working with right now. Now, with that, Lighter Creative has asked me to do an unboxing of their terrain set. This is sold either alongside the mat or separately. You can buy it either as a full set, as a bundle, or you can buy each of the individual buildings in here individually if you wanted to do that. As you can see, this is a full-size board worth of terrain, flat packed down into a super small size. Now, first of all, these are really cool. These are window boards. So if you want to play with open doors and windows, you can, but you can also board them up manually yourself, which is sick. There are also some terrain bases. As I mentioned before, this is designed explicitly for WTC style. Now, I believe that these are also largely usable for Pariah Nexus or sort of US Open, but it looks like they're all the 12-inch by 6-inch sizes, so we don't have any of the smaller buildings that the Pariah Nexus terrain format uses. So got this little guy there. Look at that little guy. He's just happy to be on the board and playing, dude. He's just ready to go. He's excited to be here. Oh, he's a gene stealer. I love him. Lighter Creative. Does he sell stickers, this guy? Because I want one. He's industriously assembling all of his terrain for you. Yeah. So first of all, just to sort of give you some first impressions here, I'm very impressed by the MDF quality. As you can see, though, the level of printing and the level of detail on the buildings itself looks incredible. So it's 2 sprues to make one building. There is a floor sprue for the multi-level terrain features, and there is a particular one that goes on the bottom here. So we're adding the ground floor and then the first floor. Oh, that's clever. Okay, so what's interesting is that there are tiny tabs on the sides of these. This is probably hard to see on the camera, but they actually snap into the floor like that and like deform slightly, which is what actually locks them in. And then with these little tabs slot right in there to lock the floor onto the walls. Let's go. Oh, that is clean. There you have it. That is a fully assembled piece of ruined terrain for Warhammer 40k. I think the assembly process, I did have to learn how to do it. So probably took me about 10 minutes, but certainly were I to do this again, I think I would probably be able to put it together in likely 5 or 6 minutes. So assembling an entire table's worth of terrain is probably like an hour. Now, I also want to talk about these. These are these little window fillers, which I kind of love. These come alongside the ruins, and they allow you to kind of like not have to abstract first floor line of sight blocking, which is obviously a bit of a contentious thing in the game right now. I've actually gotten a lot of comments about people being like, isn't it a rule that the first floor of ruins doesn't block line of sight even if you're in it? No, that's not actually a rule. That's just a house rule that most event organizers use to ensure that their terrain can actually sort of like block line of sight. These little guys can actually slot. There are slots for them right in there, and they actually just they sit right in this these little slots inside the MDF. I think I can lock it in and secure it by folding it down, but I'm just going to leave it loose for now. As you can see, very cleanly blocks the line of sight through that window. You don't even have to abstract the first floor line of sight blocking properties because you can simply use these to just do it yourself, which is sick. And I always love when ruins include these sort of modular features that allow them to play in a more organic fashion while still being representational on the table. Absolutely love that. That's super cool. Now, the terrain set also includes the classic WTC style crates. Now, real talk, I'm actually recording this after the fact, but I put together all of these crates for photography after I recorded the video, and I love them. They stack together really nicely. They assemble really nicely. No glue required, which is super cool. And obviously, they are like a very generic design. They're just a 5-inch by 2.5-inch brick. So you can use them for a variety of games, which is good because you can also purchase them separately. You don't need to get the full terrain set to get access to these. But all that together creates an entire table of WTC terrain. You can build any of the standard WTC loadouts right out of the box. Overall, very impressed by what Lighter Creative is bringing to the space of tabletop miniature gaming. I think it's very apparent that the creators, the Lighter creators, if you will, are actual players who play Warhammer 40,000. There are a lot of individual pain points that they have very specifically targeted with their product line, which I think is sick. So please go check them out yourself. You can find links to their web store down in the video description. And as always, thanks for watching all the way to the end of the video. Remember to keep it classy, folks, and have happy wargaming.